Hello and welcome back to Decode Chevening. I'm Mardan, a Chevening Scholar. And in this podcast, we are doing two things. First, inspiring you through Chevening leaders' stories and journeys across the world and giving you guidance, practical guidance to help you write your Chevening application essays. Today, my guest is Adriel from Caribbean.
That is the Caribbean, St. Vincent. It's a small Caribbean island.
He studied his MBA at Cranfield University through Chevening Scholarship. His stories, let me tell you, it's an incredible and inspiring story, especially for those who want to study MBA through Chevening Scholarship. Adriel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. We are starting with part one about the journey. Adriel, let's start with the beginning. How did you hear about Chevening?
Well, actually, the Chevening Scholarship is quite popular in my country. It's one of the most prestigious scholarships you can get, according to persons from my country. So I've known about it for years, since I was a child. But I would say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, a young lady who I grew up with in church,
Mhm.
Shernell Hadaway, she actually earned one of the Chevening scholarships, and that was the first time it kind of clicked in my mind, like, okay, this is something relatable, and somebody I know and who's very close to me that I
Oh.
grew up with got it. So maybe this is something I could potentially apply for in the future.
Mhm.
So that's where I would say that idea kind of started.
What made you apply?
I had been working for maybe around 5 years. I already had my bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and then I did a master's in project management. And I always wanted to do an MBA because for me, like, that's a really good leadership based qualification, especially if you're into business. However, I wanted to wait till I've matured a bit in my own personal leadership. So, one, I would be able to bring value to an MBA program,
Mhm.
but as well as be able to take insights from my professional life and make the journey of going through an MBA even more enriching. So, I gave myself some time building management experience. And when I had enough, I said, okay, now is the time an MBA would benefit me the most.
What challenges you faced once you started your application?
Well, that's a good question. And in applying for Chevening, I know they focus on persons who have really good leadership potential. And that is not something I was worried about. My entire life is littered with examples of being a leader and showing initiative. So I knew I would be a really good candidate from that aspect. However, a huge challenge and apprehension, I know they tend to focus on persons who have a lot of public sector experience and are involved in a lot of social causes. And my personal and academic and professional life has been a little bit, well, not a little bit, a lot different from the standard Chevening scholar profile. So I
Mhm.
was wondering if maybe because of that, I would not be considered as a, poster child candidate for such a scholarship. And even more so in terms of the concerns, I know it's very seldom that they sponsor people to do like MBA programs. So I I said, you know what, I don't want to apply for some random program that I'm not interested in. So I'm just gonna take the chance, apply for an MBA program, which I want to do, and see if they would consider sponsoring me as such.
Let me ask you about the moment when you received the email. How did you feel? How was that?
Well, that was really interesting for me. Reason being, I actually applied for Chevening and Commonwealth.
Mm.
And earlier in the year, I got news that I wasn't successful in my Commonwealth application.
Mm.
And I thought, well, Chevening is a lot more competitive and they don't usually sponsor to do MBA programs. So I said, okay, well, if I didn't get through with Commonwealth, the chances of me getting through with Chevening for MBA are zero. So
Ah.
I actually wrote that out of my mind and started making other plans. And I actually had was in the middle of finalizing a job offer to move to a new country and get a new role, a new management role. And by maybe the Friday of that week, I had to sign the offer. And I got an email from Chevening saying
Oh.
I was successful the Tuesday. And they had already made arrangements for me, like accommodation,
Ah.
transport. And I was like, wow. It was a mixture of excitement, confusion, disappointment, because I was like, I have to now choose between these two really good opportunities.
Ah.
And I mean, I don't even have enough time to reflect on the upsides and downsides of both. But I have to make a decision literally within like 2 days.
That's when the leadership quality comes in. Sometimes you have to make decision in no time. Thank you, Adriel, for sharing your journey. Now let's dive into the section which the listeners are also waiting for, the essays. Chevening asked for 4 essays: the leadership, networking, study plans, and career goals. I would like you to share your examples you used and the method you used to structure your essays so the listeners and the potential applicants can use them. Let's start with leadership. How did you use your examples to show your leadership?
Well, I highly recommend using the STAR approach. That really helps you structure your ideas in a way that is, palatable to the reader without you ranting or going off on a tangent. So you guys should definitely look that up and practice using that methodology. Now, in terms of what I portrayed, like I said, I haven't been exemplifying leadership traits like yesterday or last year or the year before. So I had a lot of examples from my personal, professional, and academic life to write this essay. And some examples I gave from like my personal and academic life. When I was in secondary school, I was head prefect for the top boys' school. And I was able to take my group of friends who were categorized more as delinquents and influence them towards doing things like joining young leaders programs and being more proactive in terms of their academics and social work. When I got to university, I wrote about how I'm really into bodybuilding and fitness, and I actually put together a bodybuilding team to represent the university, and we competed, trained together. I coached them, and we competed nationally to represent our university. I also spoke on how I, while doing my undergrad, built a brand around fitness
Mhm.
and grew a YouTube channel to over
Oh.
150,000 subscribers. And that was based around influencing people to live a healthier lifestyle and giving them the path to do so. So, those were some examples from my professional life. I was able to make reference to I was a logistics coordinator for 3 years with a team of 50. And when I got there, this engagement was 55%. So team satisfaction was 55%. That's really poor. And over 2 years, from my inclusive leadership style, I was able to move it to 78%. So I have quite a lot of examples, and I pulled out a few from my bag and presented them in that essay.
Oh, that's a great reminder. Adriel also mentioned examples from his school. So this shows that you can use your examples and initiatives and leading whatever you even took in your school period. Now the networking, Adriel. How did you show Chevening that your ability connecting with people?
Another great question. And for me, I live my life by a base principle. I put the needs of others first, and then I look at my needs and see how it aligns with theirs. And that's a core principle, I think, of networking and building relationships because persons are more receptive to help you when they feel like you have their best interests in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I apply personally, it's something I apply academically, it's something I apply professionally. And I was able to give references like in my role as a logistics coordinator. One of our main clients were shipping lines.
Mm-hmm.
And now the shipping lines, they have their business to run. We have our business as a production plant to run, and society is about understanding and awareness of our interdependencies. So every year, at the start of the year, I would take my foreign trade team, go to the shipping lines office and sit with them to ask them what are the challenges they have with their business and how we can adjust our operations to alleviate their challenges. And from that, we would actively make changes in our operations. And they were so happy to see that we're trying to make things better for their business, even though technically we are their client. They were on board with doing a lot of things for us to help our business and improve our efficiency and giving us allowances that no other business in the country had because we were prioritizing their needs. So when it comes to building partnerships, if you take that core principle, see how you can make other people's best interests a priority and align it with yours, that would take you extremely far.
That's interesting. And how did you articulate that in your essay?
So, in terms of how I structured it, I started with an introduction
Mm-hmm.
similar to this, explaining to you what is the base principle I use for building partnerships and relationships. And then from that, I moved it into giving an example that showed that. One of the examples was how I made a stronger relationship with the shipping lines. I also gave other examples. I think one of them I referenced at my work.
Mm-hmm.
There's different departments. There's engineering, there's production, there's logistics, there's quality, there's sales, and they had a very divisive culture where everyone is working in silos, and this department is only focused on their goals, and therefore they're undermining the goals of others. So what I did, I would have training sessions with my department, showing them the interdependencies between all the departments of our whole organization and how us working to help the other departments is actually in our best interest and the best interest of the overall organization. So it got to a point where my department was known for being the most supportive, the most cooperative, and that mentality grew and spread to other departments, reducing that siloed, divisive way of operating.
Networking is just not about getting, it's also about giving.
Correct.
Your study plan. I think this is one of the interesting part. I will come to this later. Why did you choose the MBA program and why the Cranfield?
Well, I'll first start with the MBA program. I am really interested in business development, and I wanted to start shifting to the next level of management where I could understand things from a board level, a director level, strategy level, as opposed to the implementation level that I am currently at. And I knew an MBA is a program that gives you insight into how things are run from a bigger picture as opposed to operational. And I wanted that knowledge sooner rather than later. And a good way to get knowledge sooner rather than later is, studying as opposed to just running up an experience pathway. So that's why the MBA. Now, I think you asked why Cranfield
Cranfield,
specifically.
yeah.
Great question, and it's actually a funny story. I'm a very practical person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am actually not, even though this is my third degree, I'm not much of an academic in the traditional sense. I like to learn for the sake of applying knowledge, not
Mm-hmm.
just learning. So I wanted a program that was structured in a way to be very practical,
Mm-hmm.
relevant, and applicable, and not just more theories and things that aren't really transferable to real business. And Cranfield is one of the most practical, transferable MBA programs you will find in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
period.
Such a clear structure and clear reasoning for selecting the university and course. Before going to study plan, let me ask Adriel one of his influential communication he made during his application. not only in the essays, but also in the interview. Chevening is not supporting MBA programs in a general sense. What's your game? How could you influence the selection committee?
That's a trade secret. Can't tell you guys. I'm just joking. But it's a good question, and that's something I had to figure out for myself. Now, I don't believe in thinking in a box, and generally speaking, I understand why Chevening does not sponsor MBA programs, because the traditional thought around an MBA is very maybe personal gain focused, earning money, C-suite type thinking, which is generally not focused on social impact. I get it. However, for me, I explained to them that the private sector and the world of business is excellent at managing for efficiency and growth. Now, that being said, the public sector generally doesn't focus on principles of efficiency and growth in a lot of countries. And there's a big gap there that can be closed if you take the knowledge from private sector management and apply that to public sector. You could actually have a very thriving public sector that is growth oriented and very efficient, and in turn that's going to create a lot of social impact. So I was able to show them that these principles from the private sector and MBA type thinking, they can actually be used in the public sector to enhance growth on a large scale, and that is what I am trying to do.
Such a great reasoning that you can convince the selection committee and the interview panel. It's one of the great influential abilities Adriel has. Finally, your career plan. What short term, long term plan did you describe?
Now, at the point of writing the essays, my career plans were wrong. After the completion of the scholarship and program, to return to my country and spend a bit more time in the private sector, but at a higher level of management, at the strategic level, and taking that experience and transferring it to the public sector in a role maybe of like director of economic planning or urban development, but from a more financial planning scale. So that's the part I actually wrote about wanting to bridge. And I mean, now I am still kind of thinking heading in that direction, but I've actually gained a lot of tools and insights from this program and learnings that have given me other plans and pathways that I plan to explore, which I could get into in a one-on-one conversation.
When I was listening to Adriel's story, it's a very clear structure that shows Chevening exactly how your MBA connects with your personal growth and also social impact. And here is something special. Adriel kindly agreed to share all his essays so you can use them to see the reasoning and how the essays are structured, and also agreed to review maximum 2 applications from applicants who are applying to business related fields. And if it's MBA in Cranfield, that's a plus. Adriel, thank you so much for joining me today, sharing your journey and essays.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I hope you got 2 things from this episode today. First, your story matters. And second, you could get clear examples of how to structure your essays. Before we close, I would love to hear which essay or topic we should dive in deeper: the leadership, networking, career, or study plan. I'm Mardan, and this has been Decode Chevening. Until next episode, stay motivated and believe in yourself.